Hi guys, welcome back to the author hot seat for our beautiful book, Depression Lied to Me. I'm so proud and honored to have Taimi Allan with me. Taimi, welcome.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here today.
Taimi, what made you come on board to this beautiful multi-author project?
Gosh, that's funny. I think I have been telling parts of my story to different audiences now for nearly 20 years. And I knew I had a book in me, but I didn't have the time to write it. So this for me was an amazing opportunity to practice the narrative part of my story that I think would appeal to massive audiences, as opposed to just the small parts that were relating to the audiences that were right in front of me. And it was in the transition between two really huge roles. So I had a little bit of time where I could actually think, if I wanted to turn my story into, an exciting narrative, what might that look like? And I started to play around with it, and I loved the process. I just really enjoyed the process. I've never written like that before, and I noticed I'm really enjoying reading the book myself and listening to the other authors. And like me previously, they're writing their story from their heart as how they've experienced it, whereas I deliberately chose to tell my story in a very different way, almost as if you were reading an action novel.
Exactly. And that made actually your chapter quite outstanding there. But then again, we've got 14 wonderful storytellers, and all of them are choosing their voice. So there's no right or wrong.
It's just been beautiful to read and hear those voices. You can hear the voice in the speaking as opposed to it just reading a story. I'm finding it absolutely riveting going through it, and heartbreaking, but also just seeing the resilience that all of the women in the book are showing in not only moving through and surviving, but thriving because of their experiences, not despite them. I had a wonderful mentor say to me many, many years ago when I first started in this work, "Hey, Taimi, make sure that you continue to be enabled by these experiences, not disabled by them." And I keep that as a bit of a mantra as I go through my life. It's enabling, not disabling.
It's beautiful. Or you could say that the trauma of your past is not defining you, but it has put you into a spot where you simply had to take action and had to grow. So it's not post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic stress disorder, even worse, but actually post-traumatic growth or post-depression growth. And it's that beautiful transformation that you can read in that book, in virtually every single chapter that there is written.
Well, maybe it's about rewriting what it means for trauma to define you, because if you consider trauma defining you in a way that's negative, then obviously that's not a narrative we want. But I consider my trauma has actually defined me as the human being that I am today in a good way. I think that I'm a way better employer. I'm a great human. I'm a nice mum. I'm a great daughter. I'm a fantastic partner. I'm good to the humans around me. I'm a good boss. All of those things are because of what I've experienced. I don't think I would have ever been as cool a human, I think, if I hadn't gone through those trauma. Yeah.
And immediately I'm going to say, and so humble. I'm kidding.
Yeah, totally. No, we're going to own this.
Yes, exactly. I love that, because we are so bad in celebrating our achievements. We are so bad in taking compliments. It is very, very healthy to actually spell it out, how far you have come. So
I guess that was the point of my story, that I'd had that, I'd had those, negative personified voices for so long in my head that actually part of the reclaiming and labeling them for what they are is not helpful, is being able to say out loud the things that you have achieved or you have surpassed and you've got through. If not for you, then for others hearing it.
Absolutely, because these voices are virtually there in every single person. And most of us, we're fighting them rather than maybe using them as messages from our own body and from our soul that there is something missing, or that there is more action to be taken.
Yeah. And for some of us, those voices are real and you can hear them like you would hear another person. And for others, they're the inner critic. And yet, even since the book has come out, I've had lots of conversation with people who have read my story in particular and said, gosh, I've never thought of giving a name to my voices or giving a name to my inner critic, whatever their experience is. But actually that takes their power away, which is what I love.
Isn't it?
Particularly if you give it a name of something that you don't actually like, or you haven't got much respect for, then.
But we're not giving more away here, guys.
No.
To actually learn more about Dumbledy and Dumble.
Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Yeah, Tweedledum. That's right.
And my friend Donald.
And your friend Donald.
Who thought he was being really helpful, but.
Priceless. What was one of the biggest lies that depression told you?
Oh, look, I think it's probably the same lie for anyone that's gone through depression, and that is that you're not worthy, you're not giving anything to the world, that it's best that, it'd be better off for everyone if you weren't part of the world. Mm-hmm. I think that's a very common lie that depression tells you. Mm-hmm.
So true.
And, I think the difficulty with that lie is that it's so believable. I mean, I was literally speaking to someone last night who was talking about that them going through these experiences right in this moment, and me saying, well, that's not true. And them saying, but it is true. I did screw up. And it's like, well, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But is that helpful to think that way? Like, is it going to move you past this moment into making amends for it, or whatever it is that you need to do next? It's not. None of these things, that whether they're lies or not, they're unhelpful if we're going to move on with our lives. And I guess that's what it says. It says, don't move on with your life. And that's rubbish, because we've all got something to contribute.
Hell yeah. How would you describe depression to a child?
There's actually something I do a lot in my work, and I also describe thoughts of suicidality to parents dealing with their children's distress, and I describe it as a weight, and kids are really good at making up their own metaphors. So some will describe it as feeling like they're in the bottom of a well and they can look up and they can see the light above them, but they don't feel they can get there, or the sides of the well are slippery, as one kid put it. But for me, it felt like a crushing weight, whether it's a rock in your chest or a rock in your puku in your tummy, that makes you feel like it's difficult to move on physically as well as mentally. It feels heavy. It brings a certain lethargy, and I think also one of the things that were never particularly helpful in my recovery, because it was me placing the onus on someone else to get better instead of on myself, was medication never helped me in that respect, because it was me going, well, this has got to fix me. And so I wasn't doing much work on myself. And when I took those pills, I called them my whatever pills, because they didn't just take away kind of the weight of depression. They took away colour, they took away taste, they took away sensation, they took away joy as well as the darkness. So I became a bit of a flat line, and I was like, well, whatever, live or die, stay, go, whatever. So part of my recovery was to move. I had to get rid of the whatever pills in order for me to try and find meaning and purpose in my life and start feeling again. Because for me, numbness or not feeling was not going to be a very good, fulfilling life. Even if it meant that I was going to have to feel the really lows harder as well as the highs. Yeah.
What would you advise a loved one of, let's say, a woman who is suffering from depression right now, and the husband or partner or spouse is feeling powerless and helpless? What would you advise this person?
well, firstly, feeling powerless and helpless is normal, because if you love someone enough, you want to be able to fix that. And the moment that they're in is not actually fixable. The only thing that's really important in that moment is constancy, is sticking around, really, because they'll be doing everything to push you away because they feel unworthy of your love. So they will be, whether it's anger, whether it's physically pushing you away, whether it's, dissolving and hiding under the duvet, or, throwing stuff at you, or wanting a divorce. All of those things come because depression tells you to do those things, right? So for the partner, I'd say this is a moment in time. Stick around, survive it, ride the waves, get the support you need in those moments. For the person themselves going through that, I think how I've managed it with friends and whānau is really all you can do is plant the seed that, yes, you can't imagine your life being any different from this. It's horrendous right now, and there's not a lot that feels like can be done in this moment, but this will pass. That's the only thing that I can absolutely guarantee in life, that this moment won't be the same moment in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, in 10 years' time. It can't stay static. So survive the moment, do what you can in the moment, whether it's, my coping mechanisms were quite weird to people, but they worked. That was, sitting in the bottom of the shower and letting the water run over you and just saying over and over again, this is going to pass, this too will pass, this too will pass. Or hiding in the back of my wardrobe and, surrounding myself with the, fresh clothes and sitting there in the dark, huddled in a corner. Like, they don't seem like great coping mechanisms, but it was the surviving the moment stuff that I think people find difficult. And the seed that I often plant with people is, well, what if it's not? What if it's not like this next year? What is that possibility? You've got a great imagination. If you can imagine, the amazing, wonderful methods we have of not being on Earth anymore, you can also use that imagination to a good purpose to think about, well, whether or not you believe it or not, what if my future didn't look like this in 5 years? What if it looked quite different? And you don't have to promise yourself you're going to move steps in that direction, but your imagination is an incredibly powerful thing, for better and for worse.
And with that, you have already answered the last question that I normally ask my co-authors. What message would you send back to your younger self when you were yourself in the darkness? And I love it. And this will also pass. You're so right. You're so right. We can't see it when we're in the darkness, but there is light waiting, and it might just be around the corner. Because when is it darkest? When just before the light comes up.
Just before the dawn.
Exactly. So my wonderful co-author, Taimi Allan, thank you so much for this author hot seat.
My pleasure.
Cool. And you guys out there, go get the book. I want to say have fun. How can you have fun with depression, for crying out loud? Well, in reality, yes, you can, because you can grow. And you can get reminded that there is a beautiful life out there that you don't want to take for granted, but you want to live it with passion and with joy and with intention. And that is what this book is all about, living your life.
And there's certainly some funny moments in it. Like, it's not all, there's no dark and depression. There's certainly some laugh out loud moments. Yeah.
Exactly. You guys out there, look after yourself. Bye.